In 1912, a German paleontologist named Ernst Stromer stumbled across something in Egypt's western desert that didn't fit. The bones were enormous, predatory, and completely wrong. The skull was crocodilian, the spine had extensions that jutted upward like the mast of a ship. The teeth were conical, built for piercing, not tearing. Every detail contradicted what scientists thought they understood about large carnivorous dinosaurs. Stromer called it Spinosaurus aegyptiacus. For decades, it remained an outlier, a fossil mystery shelved in a Munich museum. Then, in 1944, an Allied bombing raid destroyed the building. The bones were lost. All that remained were Stromer's sketches, measurements, and notes. For the next 70 years, Spinosaurus existed only as fragments, illustrations, and guesswork. But the story didn't end there. New fossils began surfacing in Morocco. Teeth, vertebrae, partial skulls. Each discovery sharpened the image, and each one made Spinosaurus stranger. By the time researchers pieced together a more complete skeleton in 2014, they realized something unsettling. Spinosaurus wasn't just unusual, it had evolved into something no other large predator had ever become. It was semi-aquatic, a carnivore the size of a school bus that spent much of its life in the water. That shouldn't have worked. Large theropods were built for land, fast, agile, powerful on open ground. Spinosaurus ignored all of that. It developed dense bones, short legs, paddle-like feet, and a tail shaped like an eel's. It abandoned the blueprint that made Tyrannosaurs and Allosaurus successful and committed entirely to rivers. This is not a story about dominance. It's a story about isolation, specialization, and the risks of evolving too far in one direction. Let's start with the sail. That enormous spine rising from its back wasn't decorative. The neural spines stretched over 5 feet tall, forming a structure that defined the animal's silhouette. Some paleontologists argued it was covered in skin and used for display, a visual signal to rivals or mates. Others proposed thermoregulation, absorbing or releasing heat in a region where temperature swings were extreme. But there's a more practical explanation. The sail may have stabilized Spinosaurus while swimming. Picture a dorsal fin on a fish, or the ridge along a crocodile's tail. In water, that vertical surface prevents rolling and allows sharper turns. If Spinosaurus spent significant time submerged, that sail wasn't just for show. It was functional. Then there's the skull. Long, narrow, flattened. The snout resembles a gharial more than a T-Rex. The teeth are conical and slightly recurved, designed to grip slippery prey, not slice through flesh. The nostrils sit farther back on the skull than in most theropods, positioned so Spinosaurus could breathe while partially submerged, exactly like a modern crocodilian. Isotope analysis of Spinosaurus teeth confirms it. The chemical signature matches animals that lived in freshwater environments. Spinosaurus wasn't just visiting rivers to drink or cool off, it was hunting there. Fossil evidence from the Kem beds in Morocco paints a picture of the ecosystem Spinosaurus inhabited. This was Cretaceous North Africa, roughly 95 million years ago. The region wasn't desert. It was a network of rivers, deltas, and floodplains teeming with life. Massive coelacanths, lungfish longer than a human, sawfish with blade-like rostrums, crocodilians everywhere, some reaching lengths of 30 feet. The competition was brutal. On land, Spinosaurus would have encountered Carcharodontosaurus, a predator nearly its equal in size, with jaws built for killing large prey. In the water, it faced Sarcosuchus, a crocodilian so large it likely preyed on dinosaurs. Spinosaurus carved out a niche between these two worlds, but that specialization came with trade-offs. Its hind limbs were short, too short for efficient running. CT scans reveal bone density significantly higher than other theropods. Dense bones reduce buoyancy, an advantage for diving, but a disadvantage on land. The pelvis was narrow, the legs set closer together. Biomechanical models suggest Spinosaurus couldn't chase down prey over distance. It wasn't built for pursuit. Instead, it likely ambushed. wading through shallow water, using its long snout to snap at fish, perhaps lunging from the banks like a heron or standing motionless like a crocodile. It was a sit-and-wait predator in a body that weighed 6 tons. And then there's the tail. In 2020, researchers published findings on a nearly complete Spinosaurus tail. The structure was undeniable. Tall neural spines, elongated chevrons, a flattened profile. It was a propulsive organ, capable of generating thrust through lateral undulation. No other known theropod had anything like it. Spinosaurus swam, not paddled, swam. But here's the problem. Committing so fully to water made Spinosaurus vulnerable in ways most predators never faced. What happens when the rivers dry up? Cretaceous North Africa wasn't stable. Seasonal droughts were common. Water levels fluctuated. Fish populations migrated or died off. For a predator that couldn't chase prey on land and relied entirely on aquatic food sources, every environmental shift became an existential threat. Spinosaurus wasn't just adapting to water, it was trapped by it. Evolution had pushed this animal so far toward aquatic life that retreat became impossible. The dense bones that helped it dive now made running prohibitively expensive. The long snout perfect for catching fish became useless against anything that fought back on land. The shortened legs that worked underwater turned distance on solid ground into exhausting labor. This is the price of specialization. The more refined a species becomes for one environment, the more fragile it becomes when that environment shifts. And in Cretaceous North Africa, the environment never stopped shifting. Paleontologists studying the Kem Formation noticed something unusual in the fossil record. The sediment layers alternate between river deposits and arid soil. Wet periods followed by dry periods, cycling across thousands of years. During floods, Spinosaurus thrived. Fish were abundant, waterways connected, ambush sites multiplied. But when drought arrived, those same rivers shrank into isolated pools. Food became scarce, competition intensified. Spinosaurus couldn't migrate long distances like other theropods. Its body wasn't designed for overland travel, so it waited. Confined to shrinking water sources, burning through fat reserves, competing with crocodilians that were better adapted to survive seasonal extremes. Some researchers propose Spinosaurus may have scavenged during dry seasons. Fossil evidence shows it inhabited areas with high concentrations of dead and dying fish during droughts. But scavenging only works when carcasses exist. In prolonged droughts, even that option disappears. This vulnerability shows up in the fossil record itself. Spinosaurus remains are rare compared to other large theropods. For an animal that size living in an environment rich with fossils, we should find more. The scarcity suggests something. Either Spinosaurus populations were never large, or individuals didn't survive long enough to leave extensive remains. Compare that to Carcharodontosaurus. Fossils appear more frequently across North Africa. A generalist predator that hunted on land, adapted to seasonal variation, capable of traveling between regions when resources shifted. Carcharodontosaurus wasn't locked into one strategy. Spinosaurus was. Then there's reproduction. We have no direct evidence of Spinosaurus nesting sites, but we can infer from related species. Theropods required stable ground to lay eggs. Nests needed protection from flooding, but access to resources. For an animal spending much of its time in or near water, finding that balance was complex. If droughts hit during nesting season, hatchlings emerged into a world with limited food. But Spinosaurus didn't go extinct because of poor design. It persisted for millions of years. The fossil record places Spinosaurus in the mid-Cretaceous, roughly 112 to 93 million years ago. That's a long run for any large predator. The adaptations that made it vulnerable also made it dominant when conditions aligned. The real question isn't why Spinosaurus struggled. It's how it survived, as long as it did. One possibility is behavioral flexibility we can't see in fossils. Modern animals surprise us constantly. Polar bears hunt seals but will scavenge, graze on vegetation, even prey on seabirds when ice recedes. Grizzlies fish for salmon, but adapt their entire diet based on seasonal availability. Maybe Spinosaurus did the same. Fishing when possible, scavenging when necessary, opportunistically taking smaller prey along riverbanks. Bone chemistry hints at this. Isotope variation in Spinosaurus teeth suggests dietary shifts throughout life, not the signature of a rigid specialist, but something more fluid. An animal adjusting to circumstances. Still, flexibility only stretches so far. You can't rewire bone density. You can't reshape a pelvis midlife. Physical constraints limit how much behavior can compensate. And then the world changed again. Around 93 million years ago, sea levels rose dramatically across the planet. Shallow seas flooded continental interiors. Coastlines moved inland. River systems transformed. The Chem ecosystem fractured and reorganized. Spinosaurus disappears from the fossil record. Not suddenly. Not from a single catastrophic event. Just gone. The rivers it depended on either vanished or became something different. The fish populations shifted. The competition adapted. And an animal built so precisely for one way of life found itself in a world where that life no longer fit. Other predators filled the space Spinosaurus left behind. Smaller, faster, more adaptable theropods, crocodilians that could handle both water and land with equal competence. The niche didn't disappear. The specialist did. But here's what stays with you. Spinosaurus wasn't a failure. It was a calculated evolutionary risk that paid off for millions of years until it didn't. Every adaptation that made it remarkable also made it replaceable. The sail, the snout, the tail, the dense bones, all of it worked perfectly until the rivers stopped cooperating. That's not tragedy. That's just time. And time moves faster than evolution. We look at Spinosaurus now through museum glass and digital reconstructions. A skeleton mounted in dramatic pose, jaws open, sail towering overhead. It looks invincible. But fossils don't capture what survival actually costs. They don't show the droughts that lasted years, the migrations that failed, the hatchlings that never made it past their first season. They don't preserve the desperation of an aging predator watching rivers shrink into mud. What we see is the winner's edit, the individual strong enough, lucky enough, to die in conditions where fossilization was even possible. For every Spinosaurus we've found, thousands lived and vanished without a trace. Their bones scattered, their stories erased. The fossil record isn't a census. It's a lottery where preservation is the prize. And that shapes everything we think we know. When we say Spinosaurus was semi-aquatic, we're really saying the few specimens we recovered show adaptations consistent with water. When we estimate size, we're extrapolating from fragments. When we debate behavior, we're interpreting chemical signatures and comparing them to modern animals that might not be comparable at all. Every conclusion carries an asterisk. Every model has gaps we fill with educated guesses. Some researchers argue Spinosaurus was fully aquatic, spending most of its life in water like a crocodile. Others insist it was primarily terrestrial, only wading in shallows to fish. The evidence supports both, or neither, or something in between we haven't imagined yet. That uncertainty isn't a flaw in the science. It's the reality of reconstructing life from stone. But one thing is certain: Spinosaurus existed in a world we can barely comprehend. A world where Africa and South America were still connected, where shallow seas cut through continents, where temperatures were higher, oxygen levels different, and the rules of predation written by creatures we'll never fully understand. Trying to fit Spinosaurus into modern categories, asking whether it was more like a bear or a heron or a crocodile, misses the point entirely. It was none of those things. It was something the Earth tried once and never repeated. The planet doesn't design animals for permanence. It designs them for right now, for the specific pressures, resources, and competitions of a particular moment in deep time. Spinosaurus worked because mid-Cretaceous North Africa needed something exactly like it. A large predator that could exploit fish populations other carnivores couldn't access. That could move through water efficiently. That could survive in ecosystems where purely terrestrial hunters struggled. It wasn't built to last forever. Nothing is. And maybe that's the real lesson. Every adaptation is a trade-off. Every specialization is a vulnerability waiting for the world to shift. Spinosaurus gained access to an underutilized resource and paid for it with fragility. It dominated a specific environment and became helpless outside it. The same evolutionary choices that made it extraordinary made it extinct. You see this pattern everywhere once you start looking. Saber-toothed cats with fangs so long they couldn't bite effectively if prey moved wrong. Giant ground sloths too large to escape climate shifts. Cave bears so specialized for hibernation they couldn't adapt when caves flooded. Evolution doesn't plan ahead. It can't. It only responds to immediate pressure. And sometimes the response that saves you now kills you later. Spinosaurus isn't alone in that. But it might be the most dramatic example we have. An animal that looked like a thought experiment. That broke so many rules we're still debating whether it was physically possible. That lived successfully for millions of years before vanishing so completely. We didn't know it existed until fragments turned up in a Bavarian museum over a century ago. We keep finding new pieces. A vertebra here, a tooth there, bone fragments washing out of Moroccan hillsides after rainstorms. Each one adds detail but rarely clarity. The picture gets sharper and stranger. The animal becomes more alien, not less. And every new discovery reminds us how much we're still guessing. But here's what we know without doubt. Spinosaurus was real. It walked, swam, hunted, bred, and died in a version of Earth so different from ours, it might as well be another planet. It survived challenges we can only infer. It failed for reasons we can only approximate. And it left behind just enough evidence to prove it happened, but not enough to explain how. That gap between evidence and understanding, that's where paleontology lives. Not in certainty, but in the space between what we can prove and what we suspect. Spinosaurus sits right in the center of that space. Too strange to ignore, too incomplete to fully know. A predator that shouldn't have worked but did. A design that broke the rules until the rules changed. An answer to a question the Earth only asked once, then forgot. And now we're left holding the fragments, trying to remember what the question was. Nothing about Spinosaurus was built to last. That's not a flaw. That's just how evolution works. It doesn't care about legacy or permanence. It solves for today and hopes tomorrow looks similar enough. For millions of years, the rivers cooperated. Then they didn't. And a predator that had committed everything to water found itself in a world that moved on without asking permission. Spinosaurus wasn't a mistake. It was a wager that paid off until the terms changed. That's the deal every species makes. Some just bet harder than others.